All right. Welcome, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Mathias Zeumer. I am the North American Channel Manager here at usecure, and we are thrilled to have you with us today. Before we get started, we would like this to be an interactive session. So as we continue, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat, and our team will respond throughout this discussion. Now, as we look ahead into 2026, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. The way MSPs approach security today very likely won't be enough tomorrow. Attackers are adapting faster than the controls designed to stop them, and the human layer is one of the key areas where the gap is widening the most. In this session, we are going to unpack what that really means for MSPs, how human risk is reshaping managed security services, where the biggest blind spots are emerging, and what forward-thinking providers are doing now to stay ahead. To explore this in depth, we are joined by Colin Knox, founder and CEO of Gradient MSP and MSP Centric, who will share his expert perspective and real-world insight on how MSPs can turn human risk into a core part of their security strategy. Hey, Colin. Very excited to have you as our guest speaker today. Thank you so much for agreeing to this. And please take a few minutes to properly introduce yourself and what you're up to over at Gradient MSP.
Yeah, sure. Great. Happy to be here and be on the webinar with you here, Matthias. For those who haven't come across me before, been in the space now with managed services for 22 years. Worked at an MSP, worked at a few MSPs, had my own, built that, exited that, did a cybersecurity vendor shortly after that. So security and cybersecurity is always close to my heart, and helping MSPs be more secure and run better secure operations, and obviously help their SMB customers be more secure. But beyond that, after I exited that business, been running another company called Gradient MSP, where we're focused on helping MSPs in their back office and financial operations, as well as in the front office when it comes to marketing. So happy to be here and happy to chat with you.
Awesome. Great to hear. I do have one question before we dive in. I saw on your LinkedIn that you have an obscene amount of flamingo puns. How come, and can we have one or two? And if not right now,
I'll have to see what I can weave in through the course of the webinar here now. But yeah, it's we chose the flamingo as the mascot for Gradient MSP when we were starting up. We wanted to have some form of standout, very noticeable, very memorable mascot, and so have this bright pink and bright color facet and stuff to the brand. And yeah, the more I dug in to learn more about flamingos over the years, it's such a suited mascot for us. We're all about creating balance in the community, helping with integrations, keeping things close, and ultimately driving and fostering a stronger community. So yeah, that's kind of the big thing. We'll see if I can weave something in without some people having some head scratches later on, but we'll see.
Awesome. I mean, sounds like is almost enough there for a whole nother webinar on flamingos. So next time. All right. Well, let's dive in then, and let's start out with the threat landscape is actually changing. So when you look ahead further into 2026, from your perspective, what are the most important ways in which attacker behavior is changing, and why does that matter for MSPs today?
Yeah, I'd say, we've seen a lot over the last several years. One, obviously, while as an MSP and your customers, you may be running and working in a very localized environment or region, you are now exposed at the global level, right? You have this entire shift that happened, call it 5-ish years ago now, when the pandemic hit, and a lot of work from home, work from anywhere. Yes, there's a bunch of companies moving back into office and already have, but really it changed the whole dynamic of a working environment, of that, want to have remote connectivity, want to be able to, and not even just want, but need to be able to work from anywhere. Which obviously increases that exposure footprint and exposure surface in general. But with that, the attackers are on a global basis as well, right? So you have that whole dynamic and shift that occurred, and now over the last couple of years, we've seen this mass race and increase in AI, which really has just made these attackers that much more honestly sophisticated. I mean, in general, you used to be able to just look for the crazy spelling mistakes or poor grammar, or just whatever that reading it wasn't really coherent, whatever was written in phishing emails and stuff like that. But now that they're able to even use AI to generate those phishing emails, be that much more sophisticated at replicating the site replicas and doing some of that stuff, it has honestly changed the way that they go about attacking now, which means that you need to change how you are securing and managing that risk for your SMB customers.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's really at scale too, right? What took attackers to do a sophisticated phishing attack, what might have taken them, days in the past, now with all these AI tools that are readily available for them, or even attacks as a service, right? They can do recon on target companies and find out employees and who they connected to and who they report up to, and pick personal stuff from social media, scrape LinkedIn and GitHub and whatnot, and create these sophisticated campaigns with perfect spelling, whether it's in English or in French or any other language, and do that at scale, do that in a matter of minutes, right? And target so many more places and people, right? Like the shift has, what we've seen over the last few years, attackers have really shifted from attacking systems mainly to people, right? So based on that, or building on that, what is getting harder for MSPs to defend against using traditional security controls alone?
I think a lot of what it comes down to, like you just said, is these different types of attacks, right? So as an MSP, over the last several years, you've instituted and implemented so many security solutions, security controls that really, protect the perimeter and have certain things inside, where if you're really getting advanced in it, your network traversal and everything else. But, what has really accelerated and what continued to be this, I don't want to say the weakest link because it's not their fault, but the employees become the weakest link as a result, right? There's only so much a tool can do. And social engineering now, I mean, again, you talk about AI, you've got AI voice, that they can be doing these calls, and now there's no accent for detection. There's all these other things. There's phone number spoofing that can occur. There's everything else that, the employees and the end users that you're supporting are the ones that are most susceptible, because you can have every MFA, password control, UTM firewall threats, all of these things in place, but that doesn't solve for if somebody lets them in the front door, right? That will never go away until we can solve that element of what a user is able to do and what they're most susceptible to.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Essentially, MSPs must go beyond tools and start managing the human behavior and decision-making aspect, and include it as a core security layer. Almost sounds like, right? This is your estimate, is that sort of why we're seeing human risk move from it's a training issue or purely a training issue in the old sense to a broader security challenge?
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? So if you look at what this category historically was security awareness training, right? And you have this as how it was framed, and so training is one part of it, but I think anybody that's done anything in their career or even in hobbies and everything else, there's this big differentiation between educated and book smart or trained and real world experience, right? And you say that all the time. And now that I'm getting older in my career, I'm like, oh, to the younger people coming in, you just don't know because you haven't experienced this. I know that you learned this in school or train, right? It's a completely different thing. I would rather that they focus on that whole awareness component of that security awareness training, right? Yes, training and stuff, but it's the practical nature of how you go about it. It's teaching them to be aware, right? I've got children now who, 10 years old and 14 years old, and they're hitting that age where, hey, Dad, can we go to the mall with our friends? Can we go off and go to a movie? Can we do this? Can we do that? And you don't want to hamper and hold them back, but me sitting there in the house or in the car harping on them, telling them, hey, don't do this, and if you see this, do that, and everything. You can't, right? It's about teaching them to be aware of their surroundings, be cognitive of what's happening around you, make an assessment about those things, right? And even, what we do when we're walking through the mall with them, hey, did you notice that person over there? Did you see that weird thing? Have you seen that these people have been following us for the last 4 turns? Not maliciously, but they must be going to the same store, or maybe are, but these are the things you need to be aware of, right? And so it moves from training to exercise discipline, right? And I think that's really where this human risk and human risk management approach needs to start to transition.
Right. Yeah, fully agree. And it's more continuous and dynamic now. So it's, on top of being aware, there has to be behavioral changes, right? Like monitoring and measuring and trying ultimately to influence the behavior, right? Awareness is great, and awareness is super important. And on top of that, right, you also, especially with customers, in the technology space, I don't know about, with your kids, but, really paying attention to the behavior and monitoring the behavior, to track what's going on, and if the awareness actually, applies mistakes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because the world we live in right now is a single human error can bypass all other security layers, right? If you have the biggest and best security stack, once, like you said, once the door is open, yes, they can catch, lateral movement here and there, but the most famous example probably is what happened at the MGM a couple of years ago, where they got in and shut it down for a week, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So moving on, looking at human risk and as a design issue, right? Historically speaking, human risk has been treated mostly, like we just said, as a training rather than a security discipline, right? Why do you think that this is, and why this is, and why is this approach starting to fail MSPs to look at security awareness training just as a training exercise that has to be done?
Yeah, so it's a good point. To the benefit of a bunch of cybersecurity software vendors, myself previously included, compliance did great for our businesses because it was a checkbox, right? You need to have these security controls in place. You need to be doing these things. Where that fails is that if it's done just to check a box, it's not going to be effective and people aren't going to care about it, right? You talk to all these companies who go through their SOC 2 or go through their ISO 27001, any of those things, it's, oh man, make sure everybody goes through and does their awareness training, make sure everybody goes through and accepts all the policies, make sure everybody, right? Well, if you're not reading those policies to comprehend and understand and be truly aware of those policies, it's moot and it's useless. But hey, you're compliant. Right. If you just go through and watch a bunch of videos on security training and then a mediocre pop quiz at the end of it that whatever, hey, yeah, checkbox done, we did the training. It's one of those things where it goes from a training exercise to actually doing an exercise, right? So, if you have any interest in fitness, you're not going to get healthy and fit and everything else by just reading about it and watching videos about it and answering questions about it. No, it's in practical use of it. It's getting out and being active. It's, lifting weights and tracking that. And it's all of those components and being and actually exercising that muscle. So I would say like your security awareness and your, the end users, security awareness muscle isn't going to grow by just reading and watching and, clicking a few things, but much more so by actually putting them into some practical exercises and actual testing of them over time and at random intermittent basis to truly train them up on it, right? And have them actually learn and build up that habit, that awareness, and that knowing immediately, almost innately, what to do.
Yeah, I really like the building the muscle, and then hopefully the muscle memory, reference you made. And like you said too, it requires monitoring, measurement, and integration into the overall service delivery, right? Because human risk essentially needs the same continuous attention as patching or endpoint protection or backup. Right? And even though it's a visible and modern threat that applies to everyone, right? Not addressing it from a business perspective is effectively leaving money on the table, and also leaving vulnerabilities unchecked, right? So it's both, and neither is good.
Yeah, and I think there's a never-ending sentiment still. Even some MSPs thinking, this isn't going to have an adjustment on my end customers. Or I've even heard MSPs say, oh, my end customers aren't being targeted. Well, it's not that somebody is coming out and saying that this 10, 20, 50 person company, I want to target them and steal their data or do whatever. It comes to a matter of casting as wide a net as these attackers can, right? Yeah. And so it's how many possible people can I reach? How much challenge or inconvenience can I make? How much money can I get off of that? That's all it comes down to. So they are literally buying lists off dark web, off anything else, and just mass spamming these emails out to people. So it's not necessarily that anybody was directly targeted, but if you're not thinking about the reality that somebody can have it. I got a message on LinkedIn from actually an MSP earlier today to ask me my advice because their own email system was hacked, right? And so now they're freaking out about it, and they don't even, they're trying to figure stuff out. But hey, what forensic tools do I know? What other security tools do I know that could have prevented this or whatever? It's just the reality, whether it's targeted or not. So I think that whole mindset shift needs to happen that, hey, yes, we need to build security awareness. We need to move to managing this risk at the employee side or end user side. And we need to find a way and to employ something that actually builds that up for them.
Yeah, 100%. And this, just to add on to that, like we're not the target of it, or my customers with 40, 50 employees. I mean, they absolutely are now more than ever, because like we talked about earlier, with AI tools, you can attack at scale, right? It's even, I mean, it's as a service too, sadly, but you can attack at scale. And so if over the course of a year, you get 100,000, victims at even at small ransomwares, right? Small ransomware is like $10,000. That's still $1 billion right there, right?
Yeah.
If you spread that over 2 years, that's great income.
It is, right? And they're paid, like, if you look, I forget which company it was doing a presentation even a couple of years ago at an industry event, and they were showing the salaries of job postings on the dark, web for people to be working and creating ransomwares, sending and distributing ransomware, everything else. We're talking near 7-figure salaries that these people are offered, because it's that big of a business to have and to get, right? If you put it in perspective, it's a volume game. As an MSP, you want to grow your company. So you're maybe building an email list yourself and you're sending out emails. Maybe you're cold prospecting, say, some intro, hey, how's it going? Offer a free resource, do something like that. But you're emailing. If you email 10 people, you have a low likelihood that somebody's going to get back to you and say, hey, sure, send me your resource, or happy to have a chat about our whatever, right? You're probably going to hit at 0. If you email 100 people, you know what? Maybe you get 1 person, 2 people reply. Email 1,000 people, there's a good chance you're going to have 10 to 20. You email 10,000 people.
Exactly.
Right? This is how it goes. They're hitting millions upon millions of people and broad email addresses, if not tens and hundreds of millions of people. So it is a reality. It's happening. They're going out there and sending those emails. But yes, it's easy for something to slip through. It's easy for them to be busy and click something or do something. And hey, there is that whole coincidental likelihood that, hey, I actually did just contact the MSP for something, or I did just ask for something that related to whatever it is. Holy smokes. Hey, guess what? Massive M365 outages going on, in the world here that's fairly recent.
Right.
If I was a sophisticated attacker, I'd probably be blasting all those people being like, hey, sorry for the M365 issues. Please click here and enter your credentials to try to log in and see if your access is restored. You want to know how many people would fall for that?
Yeah.
Tons of them would.
And again, this can be done so quickly now, right? I mean, a few weeks ago in parts of the East Coast of the US, there was a massive Verizon outage, right? Very similar. I mean, I'm sure that attackers jump on that. And speaking about that kind of attack with, MSPs, I think it was in the last CrowdStrike report that they, threat report that they brought up. Attackers are now imitating MSPs as well, right? They know so much about what's out there that they will contact an end customer from the MSP essentially and gain access to their system. Hey, can you do a screen share? We found something. Can you, and so that kind of stuff exists and needs to be addressed, right? All right, so when MSPs manage human risk as a one-off exercise or a compliance requirement, like we talked about, a checkbox, what actually breaks, both operationally and with the clients, in your opinion?
So I think a few things. It's when you take it as a compliance thing, as a one-off exercise, you're selling and you're pushing a box, essentially, right? Hey, you guys need this for compliance. I'm going to sell this to you. Your employees need to go in and do this training, or we're going to send them an email to do their training every month, every quarter, every whatever. And they're going to watch these videos, right? When it kind of goes back to that, like catch somebody a fish versus teach them to fish. If they don't understand why is this a compliance requirement? What is the risk? What could happen? What is going on? Instead of just being this, you need this, here, come in, go and do it. It's one of those things, even if, all the MSPs watching this, probably the business owners, right? You've probably tried to institute change in your own organization. And anytime you've gone and talked to your entire team of people and said, we're going to do this. Yeah, some are like, okay, sure, I'm going to start doing it. Let's talk about the big one for MSPs. We're gonna start doing all these time entries in the PSA, and here's on your tickets how you're gonna do it and everything else. Great, cool. Some of them are entering time. We all know this is a major issue, right? Technicians aren't putting their time into their tickets. That's the same exact situation. Now, if you came in and you explained to them, the reason we need to put time on our tickets is so that the customers can see the work that we're doing, and we're aware of how much time was put into it. If we need to charge overages, it helps us retain customers. And if we lose customers, you might lose your job because we can't afford to keep you. If we're not doing and delivering value, we've got that issue. Oh, also, guys, have you ever had it where somebody calls and says, hey, Rebecca in my office had the same issue last week. Can you please fix this? Wouldn't it be amazing if you could look up the ticket from last week and your coworker teammate here had properly put in all of the things in that ticket? Now you know exactly how to solve it, and that's done, right? The second that you move from just telling people to informing them and helping them understand, here's the reasons, here's the benefits, here's the outcomes, it changes everything. Mm-hmm. As an employee, I'm more likely to do my training, be more aware, and do all of this stuff. As an end customer, I'm more likely to be, yeah, let's go. This makes total sense. Hey, how's it going? And you start to remove this whole, hey, we sell you a bunch of products and security tools to, no, we're actually becoming your technology advisor and stewards and, cybersecurity, educators here. So.
Yeah, 100%. It creates that trust, right? Trust and stickiness. And I like the way you described it with MSPs and techs. You're essentially creating a system and accountability, and that you can come back to. It's not a one-off that's just hanging out somewhere. But whether it's with human risk management or in their day-to-day business, like you were describing, right? To have something to build on and to come back to. And I think one-off efforts leave both the MSP and clients vulnerable if you were to approach it in an old way, right? Like, oh, every 6 months or once a year we'll do a training, right? So continuous engagement and if that's not there and human risk essentially remains unmanaged, right? And that undermines both protection and perception, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about implications for the MSP differentiation, right? From an MSP perspective, what actually changes when you move from just offering security tools to actively managing human risk? You alluded to it just now.
Yeah. I think if you, if you want to put it into even single words and stuff, is when you sell a product or a tool to a customer, you are, by essence, commoditizing yourself. Hey, you are probably not the only company that I can get this product from. So now I'm going to go out and price shop and do all these things and look, or I might come back and say, is there another product we can use here, whatever else. And we have an issue of managed services becoming commoditized with how many companies there are, how same for same, apples to apples, the stacks, everything else. Again, when you move from pushing a product to creating an outcome, you become a trusted partner of their organization, right? It's that, yes, I have to versus do I want to. It's that, this tool sounds good, but is it going to actually work, right? It's all of those things, and that can be across any product, any service, anything that way, right? I'll allude to, right? Like, hey, I want my dog to stay in the yard, no problem. I could go and purchase an invisible fence type of thing and go through that. Is that going to work? There's a chance it might work. Do I agree with some people might not agree with the tactics, everything else? Or, hey, no, I've got someone, I've got somebody that I hire that comes in and actually practically changes it. It catches them in the action. They come in and they follow a process, catch them in the action, and change the behavior, right? And that's really what it all is. Hey, if I'm talking with a business owner, this isn't about you meeting compliance. It's about us being able to change the behavior of your staff so that they're no longer a weaker link, and you're mitigating or reducing the likelihood that any of them fall susceptible to a phishing attack that maybe leads to your ransomware, that leads to lost data, lost intel, trade secrets, or anything else, right? Yeah. And that's really where it comes into. It's changing that behavior versus meeting compliance.
Yeah, very well said. And I think in addition, it shifts the approach from being a reactive to a more proactive approach, right? For the MSP, it adds visibility and accountability. And then lastly, you improve, or the MSPs improve client retention, with the trust and the advisory function, and improve their ability to attract new clients with that, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. How do buyer expectations change when MSPs position themselves as managing, human risk, not just technology? And again, I think this, nicely segments into what you were just talking about before.
Yeah. Well, I think in general, we can even sidestep human risk. I know that's the kind of point of all of this stuff, but
no, by all means,
I mean, in general, if you look at all of these dynamics and evolutions that are happening in in the world in general, right? So, hey, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, the demographic of the end user was vastly different than the demographic of an end user today, right? So again, if I'm just selling tools and doing, ticket support, computer support type of stuff, hey, that made a lot of sense 10, 15, 20 years ago, when the average demographic of an end user was, hey, in their 50s, nearing retirement, did not grow up with computers, new to it, aren't the most technologically adept people at times, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We also now have this shift where the average end user is probably 25 to 30. And guess what? They grew up with one of these in their hands because, hey, they're whining in the back of the car, they're in the shopping cart, and I want to keep them entertained. And they grew up with it. They know how to use technology. They know how to solve their own problems. They know how to figure all of that stuff out. So selling a product, selling a single service is not going to change the game for these people, because it actually starts to make the historical MSP a little bit obsolete and irrelevant, right? This is where that consultative approach comes in about, hey, we're going to change human behavior. As technologically adept and smart and wise as the new and most common end user are, they're still going to be susceptible to more advanced and more sophisticated threats and threat actors and attack vectors and everything else. So that's where shifting that conversation to managing your risk, managing your staff, managing your business, leveraging technology to do it and leveraging safeguards to do it changes that entire conversation again. You move from commoditized or maybe even slightly irrelevant to very relevant, very necessary to them, right? And that's that big shift that any MSP needs to take there to move in and be this true partner, consultant, and advisor to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Become the trusted advisor, not only in the human risk side in general, right? And I think, with that, and in terms of human risk, that component at least can become a competitive advantage, right? Rather than just having an add-on like, wild security, where you want it or not, or human risk management, you want it or not, but having that as a core offering. Great. Well, let's look at our last part of the webinar. Let's take a look at looking at the insights we just had and turning them into action. So if an MSP listening today wanted to be ready for 2026, where should they put their focus? And I mean that in general, based on what you see over at Gradient MSP, and then also more specifically, how should they start rethinking their approach to human risk? That's two.
So I think, first and foremost would be giving it attention, right? This isn't just, hey, when I'm selling a new customer, when I'm selling, trying to upsell an existing customer, hey, we do X, Y, and Z, or everything's included. But actually paying attention to the human risk element and bringing attention to it for your customers, your prospects, everybody else, right? Start talking about things that actually resonate with them, right? Everybody knows that employees can be they're their biggest opportunity and it's their biggest risk, right? Let's be real. As any business owner, anybody that's watching this webinar that's a business owner, I guarantee you have lost sleep about a disengaged employee who might be frustrated. What if they leave? You've lost sleep about an employee who hasn't been performing and what you're going to do about it. You've probably lost sleep about all the what ifs that go on and probably relate back to employees, right? So if you are talking to them about conversations that are already happening in their head, that's great. What I can also guarantee is if you're not watching this webinar, those MSPs aren't going to be having those conversations. The best way to stand out in any market is to do what everybody else is not, right? Where are you different? In a world where differentiation is so hard, simply the conversations you're having is what can change that whole perspective and make you that much more different. Wow, nobody else has come in and talked to us about the human risk. Yes, they've pitched security awareness training and email security and email encryption and backup, and holy smokes, no one cares.
Right.
You walk in and say, hey, 2026, our goal is to get human risk under control within your organization. Human risk, what the heck does that mean? Let's talk about that. Here's a whole bunch of, types of attacks. Have you seen an email like this? Yeah, absolutely. You have. Your team probably has. What if somebody clicks on that? Oh, we have security awareness training. Okay, I sent you a video, a month ago. Did you watch it? Yeah, I watched it. Awesome. Tell me what it said. You have no clue, right? It's the retention, it's the catching. So we're going to come in and we're going to implement a solution. We're going to work with your team. We're going to make sure that they're not just aware, but that they build that muscle that reduces the risk for your organization. Because again, I know I can go on tangents, but when it comes to sales and retention and everything else, people buy from those that they know, like, and trust. Trust is a very tough thing to earn. But when they start to hear that you're talking about things and wanting to do things that align with their objectives, you're in. And what I'll also tell you is people will always make a buying decision for one of generally 3 reasons. 1, you can make me more money or make me more effective, help me produce more. 2, you can lower my cost of operation and make me faster, better, easier, cheaper. Or 3, the big one here, reduce my risk. Could be through anything. Could be the risk of, disaster. Could be the risk of hack. Could be the risk of theft. Could be whatever it is. That one's a big thing because people will always run away from what they don't want to have happen, right? So if they're worried about that, if they're worried about the risk point of their employees or even have had it in the back of their mind, you can start a conversation in their mind about it. You are in. You've won then. And nobody else is having that conversation with them. I can almost guarantee that.
Yeah, very, very, very good points. And, humans are, the numbers fluctuate, but right around 90% or so, right? Humans are the main attack vector. Right? And I don't think that's changing anytime soon. And, to have human risk as a continuous service, bake it into your security metrics, measure behavior, monitor it, right? I think it's not only essential to keep your customers safe, but also for an MSP. When do people get attacked? It's a lot of the times it's around the holidays, right?
Yeah.
People are halfway checked out and super busy to finish things up, right? All right, what was it? Click on it. And that's when the MSP then has to work, right? Instead of being at home, enjoying time with family, they're out doing a job and rolling back a ransomware attack or what have you. And so it's like an investment in themselves as well, right? Into the customer themselves. All right. When MSPs try to operationalize human risk management, what are the most common mistakes you see and how can they avoid them?
I think like anything, it's follow through, right? So to have a conversation is one thing. To sell the solution and implement it or deploy it is another. To actively be managing, continuing that conversation, reporting on it, and continuing to drive and show benefit is the other piece, right? It's not just talking, selling, and implementing. It's the whole other side of that. Right? It's continuing to manage it, continuing to have that conversation. That's where you operationalize it. It's not just in the implementation of a tool, it's the ongoing reporting, the ongoing management, and continuing to drive that. Make sure people are, doing whatever it is that you're deploying out for them, making sure that they're engaged, they're participating in it, you're taking the reporting, you're going back and saying, hey, this is great. These 3 employees are, kind of on the lower thing. So here's what we're going to do about that, right? It's deliver and start to achieve that outcome and prove that outcome that you started with is kind of the big piece right there. And then 2 is choosing a solution that can actually make you successful in delivering those outcomes. Right? There's some really great solutions out there. There's some not so great solutions out there. There's some that, hey, might have better training videos or whatever else than others. There might have some that, hey, it's really easy to ignore. It's, doesn't do all the right things. There's systems out there that it doesn't matter if it's being sent to the CEO, an engineering manager, or an administrative assistant. It's the same content over and over, right? Finding and choosing solutions that are contextually aware and that can make you successful in the delivery and operationalization, that's a big word, of that service.
Right. And integrate that into your core offering and having it going continuously. All right. Well, we are getting very close to time here. So before we wrap up, I'd like to thank you, Colin. Thank you very much for joining us today and for sharing your insight and experiences. It's been a really valuable discussion, and thank you everyone also who took the time to attend today. We hope you found this session informative and useful as you think about how security services need to evolve in 2026. At usecure, this is exactly the direction that we are seeing across the market, moving away from ad hoc training and towards continuous measurable human risk management as a core part of modern security services. If today's discussion has sparked your interest and you'd like to learn more about how usecure supports this approach, you can find us and get in touch directly via our website. You can find me on LinkedIn and or check out our NFR through your preferred marketplace or distributor. And if you are looking for free resources to help support your MSP's marketing and growth, I'd highly encourage you to explore Gradient MSP's MSP Studio at mspstudio.com. Colin, if you want to, just speak briefly to that and what MSPs can find and expect and
yeah.
What
Absolutely. I mean, every MSP struggles with go-to-market, struggles with content creation, marketing, all of that. We've packaged a whole wealth of marketing toolkits across a wealth of services and topics and everything else, and then you can come in and really just download for free and implement and use. We've got, you might be talking about human risk and security awareness. If you're curious, hey, I'm not offering that today, what should I be charging for that? We also have all those industry benchmarks within that, from pricing insights and stuff, plus countless videos and webinars and everything just like this to help educate you. So absolutely hop into that, completely free for you as an MSP. And yeah, hopefully it's something of value to you.
Awesome. And usecure and Gradient MSP, we do have an integration, I believe, right? So that's something also.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you again, everybody, for joining us today, and we look forward to continuing this conversation. Be well, everybody.